Okay, I think we're live. Okay, I think we're live. Let me know if you're able to hear me, if the sound is good, if the video is good. Give me a thumbs up. Good to see all of you here in the chat. You guys able to hear? It says we're live, so I'm gonna assume all is good. But if you could just let me know if the sound is okay, if you're able to hear me, if you're not able to hear me, if you need the volume adjusted, whatever. Yes, we have. Can see and hear. Awesome. Thanks for that. Good. And is the volume okay? Anything glitchy at this point? I know we had an issue last week, or the last time we met. All right. Very cool to see all of you. Yeah. Heidi, we saw Heidi Ho Bear saw you. Is it the Fremont contest? That's right. Yeah. Very cool. Thanks for joining us. All right. In the chat, if you guys wouldn't mind letting me know what model you're working on at this point. Yeah, would love to know. Armor, aircraft, ship, car, whatever it is you're into, let us know in the chat, and we'll get started. I started summer, so what that means to me, I'm a teacher, so that means I actually get a nice long break. And I try to spend as much of my time with that, with the family and also with model building. So I've been working pretty much straight through the last couple of weeks here. Finished up the F8 Crusader. I still am anticipating 2 more videos on the Crusader, the Hasegawa Crusader, that we should bring it to a total of 4 on the channel. And then that will put us into the next aircraft, which I'm already on at this point. And so I'm going to do a little bit of a reveal here for those of you who joined the live stream. You get to kind of see what I'm working on and the progress of this next build. So it's the F-16 Hasegawa kit, 1/48 scale. There are a bunch of other kits out there. There's the Kinetic, there's some Tamiya kits, but there's a specific F-16 that I've always wanted to build. In fact, it was one of the first 2 models I ever built, and I built it with my father. We built this particular F-16, and we built a large scale, I think it was a Revell kit, 1/24 scale Huey. And then from then on, I just took off and kind of went into models in a big way. So this is the F-16, the FSD, the full-scale development. It's technically the F-16 that was, after they did the YF-16, essentially the prototype, and they started to show that vehicle out to different countries, and it was picked over the YF-17, which would eventually become the Hornet, the F-18. Once the F-16 was selected, they then started to create sort of fuller versions or more complete versions of the F-16 as we know it today. And so it's that FSD aircraft that I'm interested in, or that I'm working to build right now. And it all started with the decal set here. Caracal Models decal company put out this set, I think, a couple years back. And I was searching online to find out how I was going to get decals for this particular aircraft, and found that Caracal issued it several years, I think like 5 to 10 years ago. And then I heard through their Facebook page that they were going to re-release that set that had been essentially canceled. And so I very quickly, once I kind of waited around, and then once they were available, I ordered a set right away, knowing that I would expect to build one of these. So the one that I have sort of landed on and chose as the aircraft that I want to build is specifically this one, 750745, or this one, which is the same airframe, just a slightly different version. You can see here they've put the flags of the countries that had agreed at this point to purchase this vehicle. This aircraft was called the Deal of the Century, and so my plan is to actually put it on a circular base and have set like a maintenance table, have other maintenance, essentially like little vehicles around it, and then put a plaque on it that says Deal of the Century. So that's the plan. That's kind of my dream for this is. Though it's entirely possible, I build the vehicle and I go, or build the model, I just, okay, that's it. You know, I'm going to move on to the next thing. So, I'll kind of see how far along we get in that regard. So, you might know, for those of you that are into this, the YF-16s, let me go ahead and grab the kit here. There is the Tamiya version of this aircraft, and this is the original, the YF-16, as seen here, okay? This kit is not really easy to come by. I will say it cost me a pretty penny to get it, and I expected initially to build the YF-16, but when I got the kit, I found that, you know, it had raised panel lines. Okay, I could rescribe, but it really looked outdated. We have some, here, I'll show you on the screen here. This is what we get for the engine. Not the worst thing because an engine can be replaced, but it's just, you know, some of the scribing was a little bit large. It just felt a little bit too old to work with. This white plastic would have been very difficult to find. Seams would have been really difficult to work around. The other major drawback, quite frankly, is this one-piece canopy. I would have to keep it closed. If you know anything about my builds, I'm not a big fan of closed canopies, but it would be lacking this large section in the canopy, which is supposed to lift away along with the canopy itself. So, you know, I'd have to do some surgery, I'd have to cut stuff out, probably use some from another set, but the YF-16 is actually smaller than the full-scale F-16 and certainly the F-16A and the F-16C and D, or C at least, that we know today. Not only is it smaller, I think that there's a portion in the middle section that had been added to the FSD to stretch it out, make it larger, but also the nose, which we have here, is actually quite thin. And that's because in the FSD, they decided to add they started to add the radar equipment at the front of the nose, and they had to make it bulkier to work around the radar. And there are many other little things all around the aircraft that would need to be adjusted. They're not adjusted. I would have, again, if I were working for the YF-16, this kit is really the best kit to start with. But the fact that the scribing and the panel line issue would just been really a lot of work. You can see here there's even a dimple in the plastic that we'd have to fill, and there's just things like that all over the aircraft. Not the end of the world. Could have been a nice challenge, but I opted instead, after purchasing the monogram kit, I bought the monogram kit. I also ended up buying a different F-16A, the F-16A Plus, but found that this F-16A that I have here, the Hasegawa set, is really the best direction to go. It's this one here, as far as making the FSD. Now, I want to make it clear, my plan, what attracted me to this model and this aircraft, is the red and the white and the blue. So there are other airframes on here that have other camo versions, but I really wanted to do this version. I was kind of okay with doing the F-16 101. The only difference is that they added the General Electric 101 engine as opposed to the 100 up to that point, which they used the 100 up to that point, and then they started to use this 101, which I think was eventually used in the F-15 Eagle as well. But you can see there's all kinds of neat versions. There's this one with the red. It has these interesting streaks on the front of it. And I just really what I loved was I think it was a 48 scale, either a 48 scale or a 32nd scale F-16 that I built with my father, and so I was trying to be as true to that memory as I could. And so I'm ultimately going with an FSD, okay, the F6, essentially an F-16A, and going to go with just the standard General Dynamics F-16 number on the wing. I think it looks great. So again, I have two versions to choose from, one with the flags, one without. Okay. And I haven't decided which one to go with, but they're so close that I can kind of wait until the decals to really make that final decision. I've been using many different sources for research. I've read quite a bit about this. I have a couple of books that I got that are great. These three, I had the walk around for quite a while. This is always a great book. This is really, it's got a lot of great photos for the F-16C in particular, but a couple with the F-16A, and a couple in particular, let me see if I can find it here, that actually show another issue with this aircraft. You can see here on this page, they talk about the Y F-16 prototypes were equipped with the Stencil S111S ejection seat, while all production F-16 variants use the ACES2 ejection seat. Now that's not entirely true. I found out through my research. The Stencil was not really with the Y F-16. It was only used for the FSD aircrafts. The Y F-16s just use an Escapec ejection seat, which I think is the same one that you find in A4s and other aircraft. I think the A7, if I remember, also used the Escapec. I could be wrong on that, but so that began my search trying to find the Stencil ejection seats, for which I could find none. Now, apparently at some point, a few companies here and there had produced aftermarket seats, and I think the idea there was the Stencil S3S would eventually be used in the Harriers, the AV-8s, but they were much, sort of later versions of this seat. So I decided, going into this project, I said I'm going to have to scratch build my own ejection seat. Never done it before. I have sort of added pieces to seats. I've modified them. I've made new seat cushions, certainly new seat belts. That's something I often do. So I felt like this is something that I could tackle. And here is the seat so far. As you can see, it has a coat of primer on it. And this was my first attempt. I typically like to do things like this kind of twice, but I decided that this was good enough. I'm happy with how it turned out. The only thing I need to do, I think I'm going to add a row of sort of raised rivets, just to add a little bit more detail on the edges. But my photos of the seat itself, which I found in this book, there's one photo, unfortunately. It looks pretty bare, and I thought I captured it, the angles and everything pretty well. Okay, so, and it'll be interesting. There's red for the cushions, and upon looking, when you look at other pictures of the FSD in particular, you do see those red cushions in the aircraft. Let's see if I can find any more. This book I was very hopeful about. Great American Combat Aircraft by History and Collections. It's a French book. Quite impressive. They do show a nice shot of the F-16 101 here, which again is actually the same airframe that I'm building, the 75045 or whatever it was. 750745 is the airframe that I'm building. You can see that's the same one here. So what they would do is they would take these FSDs, and every year or a couple of years they would add things to them and make adjustments and use them as sort of a test bed. Not really testing out, but just sort of adding things that I believe the other country customers wanted on the aircraft. I think that's how it kind of worked out. All right, so here's a nice shot there. Here's some of the CCV with the streaks. Here's another shot of the 101. And then we go back near the beginning of the book. Try not to do that. Okay. We can see the original YF-16 with the much thinner, sleeker nose. Even the gear door is in two pieces, which the Tamiya kit did do. So again, the Tamiya kit is very much captures the look of the YF-16. There's this clear piece up here in the vertical stabilizer. The horizontal stabilizers have a particular shape to them. I'll get more into that later. Yeah, here's another YF-16. And again, here's the one that I'm going to do, the FSD. And really, I think the best way to notice the difference between the two is the black that comes up to the nose and continues back. On this one, the black paint just comes up to the nose and stops. But this one ends up coming back around. So if you see that, you know that that's the aircraft that I'm working on. And this photo shows it perfectly. So they've actually labeled it correctly as a YF, okay? And then it goes black here, and this one is the version that I'm going to be doing, and the black continues below, okay? And again, there's a version without the flags, there's a version with the flags. There are versions with other flags, in fact, and they offer this in the decal set. There was a sixth country that they dropped here. It was Iran. Iran actually wanted to purchase the vehicle, so they have the flag parked right about here. And then shortly after, they removed the Iranian flag and they replaced it with the Israeli flag. The Israelis wanted to buy it, the Iranians pulled out. So luckily in this decal set by Caracal, they give you the option of adding those flags. If I do it, I plan to just go ahead and put these 5 on. I just think it looks aesthetically better. Or again, I might do the version without the flags. So that's where we are. Okay, let me head over to the chat here and just kind of see where you guys are chiming in on. Yeah, great, Heidi Ho, awesome. Okay. Yeah, so you're the MEM 104 Patriot radar. Now, is that the same kit, Connor, you were working on before, or did you finish that one? KZXB8FI, I'm working on 148 scale Rodin L19 Bird Dog. Fantastic. I'd like to know about that kit. I'd like to know what you think. Is it fitting well? Is it a good kit? I was really interested in picking one of those up. Yes, Connor, you nailed it. It's cool for the 250th America. Absolutely agree. I'm gonna try to tie that into the videos when they come out. Yeah. You're absolutely right. The red, white, and blue worked perfectly. Dancing Brush, all right, welcome. I love your videos, Dancing Brush. If you guys get a chance to check out Dancing Brush's videos, he's working on an F-102 right now. I was this close to working on the F-102 next, but I decided to do this F-16. So I'm glad we're not building the exact same one, but that's gonna be rescribing some panel lines. I've got a aftermarket resin set for the cockpit, which I'm really excited about. And that was a kit I attempted years back. I didn't have the skills for it. I think I'm okay now. I think I'll be okay. So yeah, Appreciating that. That's great. Kit bash ejection seat. Nope, just straight up. Yeah, it's gonna be straight. It's just straight up scratch built. I finished the other one. Just got to paint. Awesome. That's great. Yeah, Dancing Brush. Awesome, man. All right. Good to see all of you here. Thanks for joining us. I'm just talking about the F-16 here, what the plan is. All right. So let's move forward. I do want to show you what I've got so far. So here's the cockpit. I just went and did it straight out of the box. Didn't want to do anything fancy. I was up against the fact that I was dealing with essentially a different cockpit than would be found even in the F-16A. So I said, let's just go with what looks simpler. And I decided to do it out of the box. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I added a couple of the dials, switches, and stuff from Annie's products. And then I also, it's not complete, by the way. There's still a little more painting I need to take care of on this console here. Let me move, yeah, there we go, okay. On this console right here. I added some dials in here with decals. I actually I scratch built the foot pedals. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a shot of them. There we go. Let's see. I don't know if you can see or not, but back there, there's the sort of hollowed out squares of the foot pedals. I basically took a piece of square plastic and kind of drilled and then filed down some squares. They're not super, super clean, but I figured it wasn't going to be well seen anyway. It was better, still better than the original inaccurate seat pedals. And then also, I don't know if you can tell, nobody will probably ever see this, but there's quite a bit of gap or quite a bit of hole, like this hole essentially here behind the control panel. So I decided to continue those sidewalls beyond a little bit further and add a few details on there just to make it look like it's busy. And then there's also a little bit of wiring kind of hanging down, which I've noticed on a couple of shots of the cockpit of this aircraft. So I continued a little more detail, and then I'm going to add a few more. There's some other boxes that should be right here on the front of the control panel, and then I'll start working on the heads-up display. Another thing I did is I drilled out the vents here for the gun. It was something I was hoping was going to work out, and it actually worked out okay. The way I did it was I thinned this out with my new favorite Katurk drill, by the way. I got a nice sander and got everything nice and smooth, and thinned them out, and then sort of looked at it against a light source, so I could see the shine come through and sort of poke at them and start to remove some of the plastic. After I did that, I also added a piece of tubing here. The reason is they had the hole essentially for the gun like straight on. So I'm not sure if it just went straight on so you could see. So here there's a little bit of white. That's to fill it in. And this way that looks like the gun is actually facing this direction as opposed to out. So I fixed that on it. And I think that's all as far as the top of the fuselage is concerned. And now onto the lower section of the fuselage. Okay, did quite a bit of work in the main wheel well here. All of the white and some of the lighter gray here is scratch built. Okay, as you can see, I've got some springs here. It's not complete. If you're familiar with the F-16 wheel well, there are some other rather large boxes that need to go on. This piece sits roughly here. It would be straight, yeah, it's right about there. And then there's another sort of I'm not sure exactly what the tank is. I should look that up at some point. Oh, grab a pair of tweezers here. And this tank might be a little bit long. I was having a hard time finding the dimensions of it, but it's going to sit right about here. And I was pretty happy with how it turned out. I think that's right, yeah. Okay, and if you're familiar with this color, you may know that this is the Epoxy Putty by Tamiya. So two-part, rolled them up, essentially rolled it up to a circle, and then let it dry. And then I took, I drilled out a hole in the middle, took a piece of like thin brass rod, glued it to the end of this, started it up, and then set it against a sanding stick to get the shape just right, or at least pretty close. I'm happy with how it turned out. Added a little piece of, cut out a little hex shape piece here, and then another circle piece on top to emulate the sort of detail that was there. So that'll be here. That'll be a nice silver color with like a red stripe, I think, going across it, if I remember right. This box will need to be kind of a deep blue, and the other pieces will be white, and the rest of it will be white with the occasional silver details, okay, on the wires and stuff. I found a kind of a new way of creating these kind of wires. What I do is I just use stretched sprue or very, very thin styrene, and just essentially lay them next to each other and put a drop of Tamiya extra thin. And if I do it on paper, they don't actually stick to the paper, they just stick to each other. And so I can make a row of 3 or a row of 4, and that's how I get that sort of wired look, or look of like these sort of cables going across, which is fairly accurate. A lot of the details, you know, I was very careful to mimic the look of the actual wheel wells, okay? In some cases, there is some, what Shepard Payne would call gizmology. If you're ever familiar with how to build dioramas, or what's the other one he did, the how to build military models, I think is what it is. Essentially, he's referring to tanks and stuff. But he was really great at doing this sort of scratch building, and he would call it gizmology. It's just the idea of putting a bunch of extra pieces that kind of make it look busy. They're not accurate, but it's going for an accuracy in regard to its busyness, right? Which I think is totally useful and really a time saver sometimes. Speaking of gizmology, I carved out this panel here. This panel is often, it's a gun chute. It's for the I believe the shells collect here, and then they collect the shells. But the panel itself, as the aircraft's down, it just opens on its own. I've noticed a lot of photos of the F-16 just sitting there, and the panel's just down. So I decided to create some detail in here and use gizmology essentially to just create the impression of that there's a lot going on here, but then there's also this hole where the pieces fall out, okay? So I'm gonna have that panel just kind of sitting ajar there. You'll notice this hole was drilled out. I think that's accurate, I hope it is. And on my some of my photos, it looked like it should just be this impression, or it should be what's the word I'm looking for? It looked like it should be drilled out. So I did that, and I capped it off with a little piece there. Covered up, there's a attachment point hole here for an antenna that actually isn't found on the FSD. And then these are for the strakes. I filled in the holes for the strakes, because these are actually not attached by a thin piece like this. They're actually attached by essentially rods like this. So I mounted them onto here and drilled the holes. Let me make sure it's the right one. Yeah, so it essentially goes in like this. Okay, they're not going to be movable, so I'm going to want to position them in place. I'll use some super glue, but this is essentially how they'll look. And you'll see a little bit of a pole there, as opposed to this very large piece going across, and that's more accurate to the vehicle. Okay, pretty picky, I know, a little finicky, but this is something that I did on the F-16 years ago. I would say about 10 years ago, this is what I built. As you can see, it's not complete. In fact, it's very dusty still. The pitot tube broke off. I don't know if it broke off. And then I just didn't finish a whole bunch of stuff on here. But I did the same thing with these strakes. Yeah, I left them unglued, which is a mistake. But you can see here, I also did some work here in the wheel well. Very similar. It's not as accurate as I did 10 years later, but you can see I added some stuff here. I did also add some stuff in the front, the forward wheel, the forward gear well. I don't know how much I'll do on this one. I don't know that I'm too worried about it. The engine came off. Here it was. I think it was an aftermarket engine. I think that was correct. And this would be the 101, or the one. Make sure I get this right. At this point, I think it's the 110 or the 220, because this would have been an F-16C. Yeah, it wasn't terrible. It was actually, I thought it was pretty good for the time, but I think we were in the middle of a move or something, and so when I moved to a new location, and we're in our third house now, and hopefully our final house, so there's something about getting to a new space, a new workspace, and I just want to start fresh. So I think that's what happened with that vehicle, or that model. All right, how's everyone doing? Sometimes I tend to ramble. Actually planning on building the F-16, the FSD jet, and the demo jet. Oh, fantastic, let's find out. Yeah, the demo jet is cool, and I think seeing that, the kinetic, I think seeing that model when it came out a year or two ago inspired me. But I looked at it and I was like, no, this really is, to me there were enough differences between the later F-16 and the one that I wanted to build from the late 70s. So I was tempted to buy that. Obviously there's a lot of pluses to buying the new one. It's probably going to be a fantastic kit. I'm probably not going to have to deal with fit issues. I won't have to deal with scratch building ejection seats. But I decided to take the harder route on this one. Yeah, that's very cool though. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to go a little further on and talk about some of the other changes I made to this. There's a bit of paint here on the edge, on the outside here. It'll be easily cleaned up. But I finished up, just today in fact, finished up the intake. So what you can see here is I added on more plastic because my plan is to add this engine fan on the end. It does fit. I've fit it several times, right about there, okay. And so that when we look down the vehicle intake, we can actually see we see the engine fan there, okay? So I want to talk a little bit about this. It is a little bit short from the actual aircraft. It should go a little bit further out, right about to out here. That would cause the tube then to continue on and go a little, and not continue this angle down. It could have worked. It was just going to be really difficult, and I decided that the distance of the engine to the intake was enough. But all of my work at that point went into fusing this piece with super glue and then filling in on the inside and sanding down and getting that work down. I got it down to where I was happy, everything was smooth. I then got some emulsion. Is that the right word? Emulsion paint. It's more of like a primer, like a 2-in-1 kind of paint. It's not specifically primer. In fact, it might be vinyl. I can't remember exactly what the property is. But the emulsion paint it was not easy to come by. I just had to order it well, it was easy because I just had to order it online. But before that, I looked around at other shops and asked around, like Lowe's and a few other stores, and they didn't even know what I was talking about. So luckily, I was able to find it online. And I essentially continued. I taped off, continued along the circle and taped it off, and then capped it off with more tape on the end, and took this emulsion paint, which the first time I used it, I found it was very thick, so I ended up having to rinse everything out. Luckily, it's water soluble, so I was able to use water to flush it out. But once everything dried and I was able to sand it down again, I did the process again, thinned it down, I would say, a 1-to-3 ratio, so 3 parts paint, 1 part water, maybe even less water than that. Stirred it really good, and it started to get like much more runny. It was great. I let it sit there. I filled it all the way up from the bottom to the top, let it sit there for a few minutes just so it kind of grips on pretty well, and then released the bottom, and then left the tape here so that as it's dripping down, it doesn't just collect on this edge, it collects on the edge of the tape, and which I was going to remove anyway. Okay, so I did that the first time successfully, had to let it dry, and realized that there was still some cracks, not from the paint, but from the putty, and I just did 2 more coats of this paint and got it to where I was really happy with how it turned out. So it dried. It was dry this morning. I looked at it. I said, oh, great. I am ready. There's a couple little spots I need to sand down, some little bubbles, air bubbles that were there. But overall, I'm really happy with how it turned out. And then this morning, I added this little piece, which was difficult, but I was like, okay, let me really plan this out, how I'm going to tackle this. And so I cut a couple of these pieces out of plastic, just the right shape, the right length, and said, okay, as I'm going along, I'm probably going to drop some, so I just made a couple of versions of them. And I think it was the 3rd version, I finally got it right. I was able to add just a little bit of white glue here and set the piece down, let it dry for 10 seconds, and then pulled the top so it was forcing itself against the top of the intake, and then a few more very small drops of white glue. And it's not just white glue, it's the extra strong formula, which I find is stronger than just your regular Elmer's white glue. And then use just a very soft brush, dipped it a little bit in water, removed most of the water, and just wiped away the excess white glue. And that's how I was able to get that piece on. And I think it's pretty straight. I'm really happy about that. You need to see if it's centered based on the wheel well here, not this particular piece. This piece is not centered, as you can see. Okay, but that's how I was able to achieve straight up and down. I was very, very happy with that. So my next step is sanding this down. And then, as you can see, it's going to fit in here. I had to do a lot of surgery. I had to carve this section out. Okay. And I am trying to be careful not to squeeze this too much. If there's any give, not only could that piece pop off, but also the putty itself on the inside might start to crack. So I'm just trying to be real careful here. Okay, that's going to fit like this. I'll then put the engine fan piece on. You can see I actually had to shave off the top of it, because if I had too much of this continuing up here, I would have to force the top portion of the fuselage down. Every time I started to force it on the inside, this little bulge would start to happen, because essentially this piece is being reshaped. So I did a lot of dry fitting to get it just right before I settled in and started to sand away. And that's essentially where it'll be, like that. Okay? There is a little bit of force on it, but it's enough, okay, to not affect the inside. So I think that's what I'm going to work on today, is getting the fuselage together. This engine fan, because of the similarities between the F-16, got a little bit of hot chocolate here, the similarities between the F-16 and the F-15 engines, and they're roughly from the same time period, they're made by the same company. I decided to take these from an older F-15 kit that I already actually had painted up, and I added, years ago, I added a wash, and I was like, oh, this is good enough. I don't need to repaint this. I don't need to update it. I'm happy with how it looks. So I'm just going to glue it directly onto there. And that's the plan. And that's some of the changes I made on this. Let's go ahead and check out the chat room here. going to start your F148 scale A4 Skyhawk build collection. Fantastic. Wow. The Hobby Boss, and you'll do the monogram, then the Hasegawa, and then the A4M. Very cool, Arnell. That's great. I'm really excited about that. I'm dying to do an A4C. I built the M, I built the E, the Hasegawa kits. And I think the only C version out there, if I'm right, is the new Hobby Boss. I don't think Hasegawa did a C. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that, yeah. I think it's just the Hobby Boss. I like the look of the early A4s, how sleek they look. But yeah, that's great. I'm excited. Yeah, it is too hot for that counter. I'm absolutely insane right now. I'm like sweating. I'm sitting here sweating, but I made it on my way out the door. I was like, oh yeah, it's gonna be fine in the room. And so I walk in here and it's, you know, it's 80 degrees in here. And put on my air conditioning and it just wasn't enough. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm just gonna suffer a little bit. That's fine. If I put it on now, it would be too loud. So I just don't want to disrupt you guys too much. Yeah, let's see, what else? Added the appropriate weight on the nose of the F-16, and then decided to add some tubing here for the pitot. Let me use this little drill bit just to show you. I will add another little piece, essentially a piece of brass or metal, and won't be quite this long. It'll be about half that size. But you can see I built up the super glue to make it flush and then sanded it down so it looks like it just continues on. I was pretty happy with that. There are photos of this airframe with a very long pitot tube and some extra little pieces that extend out sort of in a cross formation. But there are other ones where they're shorter like this. And so I decided I'm gonna have an easier time making this one than I will with the larger pitot and the little extensions coming off. So I opted to go with this version. Was happy that was available as a possibility. Yeah. What else? Oh yeah, okay. The horizontal stabilizers on the F-16A kit of the Hasegawa, as you can see here, have this little cutout section here in the corner, whereas the F-16 FSD should be more aligned with the YF-16. They should be shorter, and they should not have that cutout. So what I did was these are from the kit. Oh, I will say also, I have the F-16A Plus and the F-16A Hasegawa, and I always said to myself, there's very little difference between the Plus and the F-16A, and I believe really the only difference is the control panel. So I said to myself, okay, I'm going to use this F-16A Plus as a backup. So if for whatever reason, anything that I'm changing on here, if I mess up, I've got other pieces to work with. I know it seems silly to buy two kits to build one, but I felt like it was worth it. Plus, if I ever build another F-16 kit down the road, I'll have just one kit just ready to go as spares if I ever need. So I feel like, though it's an extra $20 or so, I felt like it was worth it. Just that peace of mind, knowing that I have backup just in case. So I'm not sure if you're in a position where you can do that, but if you're doing this sort of this work where you're cutting stuff away and removing large pieces of plastic, it might be worthwhile to get two sets of that kit. Anyway, so what I did was I looked at diagrams of the FSD and compared them to the YF-16 and looked at the Tamiya horizontal stabilizers and matched as well as I could. It's not exact, because again, these should not be as small as the YF-16. So this should be right about here, and it's pretty close. The angle's off a little bit, I tried to figure out if the angle is off on the Tamiya, the old Tamiya, or if it was off on the Hasegawa. But at some point I said, well, it doesn't, I'm not going to be too worried about it. So basically cut off the section here and beveled the edge a bit to get it thinned out. And so that's going to be accurate on the aircraft. Go right about here. And then I think was there anything else I did? Oh yeah, the vertical stabilizer has some differences as well. There is, essentially I think it's a little parachute piece that comes out. Maybe it's not a parachute. Another box that was essentially here. I carved it off, sanded it down. Everything else is correct though. Obviously I need to fix that seam there, but this antenna, the way that it's set up, should be there. I was considering chopping off the top piece and then sanding it down to get it even thinner, but I think I'm okay with where it's at, so I'll just leave it. But there should not be any of the little bulge pieces that we see on the F-16C. These pieces should not be there. That antenna should not be there. This extra antenna should not be there, but these little, I think they're for those little pieces that stick off the fins. They have to do a static charge, I believe. I decided to sand them down on this model because they were quite large, and I'll just add very, very thin copper to replicate those. But yeah, this will fit right on here nicely. Yeah, the F-16, the Hasegawa F-16s are great. They're great. I don't, if you want to compare them to the latest and greatest, I don't know that they'll hold up next to like the kinetics and stuff, but I have found that I really like Hasegawa kits. I really enjoy them. I feel like their detail is enough, so I'm continuing to build them. Let's see. I had to turn on my extractor fan for my airbrush. Yeah. I put that fan on every time I airbrush. Just not a fan of having the particles in the room, as I'm working and stuff. And it just vents out to a window. Works out really well for me. All right, so, oh, by the way, let me know if you guys use an airbrush, what airbrush you use. I'm curious. I use Mr. Hobby, the Procon Boy. I think it's I got like a 2.0, I think, and a 3.0, I think that's correct. I've got about 5 or 6 airbrushes. I've got a gallery airbrush. I was using Badgers actually. So I started out using Paches, I think like everybody, the single action. I have probably 4 or 5 of those somewhere, the Pache H's, and used them for years and did the siphon cup, not the gravity feed, but the siphon feed. And just suffered for probably 15 years from like high school through my 20s and continued to suffer and just think, oh, a clogged airbrush is a normal thing, And at some point we moved to our second house and I, starting to get really like better at model building, I was starting to improve a lot. And I said, what the heck am I doing? Let me get one of these later airbrushes. And by later, I just got a Badger, So Badger has been around as as long as the Pache airbrushes. But in my mind, it was more state of the art at the time. And I got a gravity feed, and my world just opened up. I mean, I'm really good about cleaning my airbrushes, and I just didn't. I was like, okay, this is so much easier. I still clean after every session. I don't do a full tear down, and I'm not a big fan of tearing down this equipment and putting it back on every time, but I'll do that every maybe 5 or so sessions. But I'll definitely, run a brush through it, get some Q-tips going and clean them out. So I've been always pretty good about cleaning them out, but boy, those Badger airbrushes were a game changer. And I don't know if it was a Badger versus Pache or if it was gravity feed versus siphon feed. That really appealed to me, but it just made my life so much easier. And then, and I think it was, I'm trying to remember what brand it was. It was like the Badger Patriot series or something or Renegade. I think Renegade was right. And And then as maybe a few months, maybe about a year went by, and I was happy. I bought 2 of those within that time, and then I started to find other airbrushes. And I don't know if that I'm at the point where I want to go to Iwata's or Harder and Steenbeck, but I'm really happy with these airbrushes at this point. The gallery's okay. It's been a little bit hit and miss for me. I was lucky enough for them. They approached me for testing out some of their models, and then I would get to keep the airbrushes. But they're okay. It was the 39 and I think 60 something models. But I really like the Mr. Hobby Procon Boy. Strange name. I don't know what it means, but I really like those airbrushes. I've got 2 of them, and one of them I just use like regularly at this point. And then just a standard air compressor I got from Amazon. Had no problems with it. Yeah, so let me know what you guys use for airbrushes. Oh, Connor, you're using the Mobius 03. Cool. Yeah, great. Oh, I see. You're just turning on the fan airbrush fan for the heat. That's pretty cool. I hadn't considered that. I might have to try that out. See if that works. That's great. Yeah, and then going back to my hot chocolate, I'm sitting here, and I've got it on my little heating stand. So I'm like even making it hotter. It's like, what am I doing? What a nut. Okay. What else? Oh, let me just show you some of the kits I picked up recently. I'm really excited too because my wife and the kids, we're gonna take a trip to Disneyland coming up next weekend. Really excited about, and because it's Father's Day weekend, she said I plan to take a 3-minute detour, and we'll go to that hobby shop you are always talking about, Burbank House of Hobbies. And I'm like, great, because I order a lot of stuff from them, and I've had great experiences. There was even a time where somebody stole a package off my porch, and contacted them just to find out if they had actually sent it. I was like, oh yeah, we sent it. And the guy was like, said, let me give you 10% off, just for being a loyal customer. And I was like, oh, cool, that's really great. So I've had some really great experiences with them. And so we're going to get a chance to visit them, and I'll plan to pick up a couple of models from them, from the store. But in the meantime, I've got a couple of kits that came in, and here's the Hasegawa Teardrop Typhoon. You might remember last year I built one already fairly recently. I love the Hawker Typhoon, and nobody's planning on building one anytime soon, I don't think. If you know any differently, let me know, but I'm just going to stick with the Hasegawa because I want to build this aircraft, and I don't care who makes it. So I'm going to do another one. They're just damn cool. I don't know what it is. I actually, it's funny, I built one as a kid, and I was always like, oh, the Mustang's so much cooler, or the Hurricane or the Spitfires are so much cooler. But as an adult now, it's just something about the uglier ones, that are just beautiful to me. I don't know what it is. Same thing with the F-8 Crusader. As a kid, it was like the A7's better, but even the F-16s are better and the F-15s are better than the A7s, and I just thought the F-8 was ugly, and I still built one as a kid, and now I'm like, I don't know if it's nostalgia or something, but I'm just like, the appeal of the F-8 is stronger than the A7 at this point. So funny how that works. Okay, let's show another one here. I got another kit that I built years ago. When I started, actually, this is hang on, microphone malfunction, hang on. Not like a Super Bowl malfunction. You guys remember that? Janet Jackson years ago? This is the ICM Bronco. In fact, when I started out my channel, I think this was the first aircraft that I built. And it's not the exact same. It was an OV-10A Bronco, the one I built. And this is also an OV-10A. But this is a different scheme, and this is the scheme that reminds me of the old Testors Bronco, which I had attempted many years ago, probably decades ago. And I had all these ambitions of scratch building the interior and doing all kinds of stuff with it. I never got around to it. But yeah, I really like this light gray, green, black scheme. So I'm going to build this one at some point. And since I built it fairly recently, a couple years ago, I kind of know some of the things not to do. One of the things not to do is to not forget to put weight in the nose, because the model that I have, I either the instructions didn't say anything about it, or I just wasn't paying attention, and I started to put everything on it, and it's just, you know, slowly rocking back. I'm like, what is going on? So I ended up deciding later on that I was going to put a center line fuel tank down it and put a whole bunch of weight right at the front of the fuel tank, and that actually helped it sit fairly well on its nose. Yeah, so I'll do a better job of not having to come up with a solution after the fact. All right, the FSD tails are more closer to a Block 5 F-16. Heidi Ho Bear, explain what you mean. I would love more information. Absolutely. If I need to make adjustments to this puppy, I will. If I need to pull something out from the F-16A Plus, I'll do that too. Let me, I'll look at that later. Actually, it's right here. Let me know what's different. I've been examining the been looking at the photos, and I feel like it's pretty close. This one's been already glued together, but here's a plus version. I'm not sure which block specifically it is, but I'm guessing the plus is a later one. Does it have to do with the length, the height? Please let me know. If I need to make adjustments, I'm happy to do that. All right. Let's see, what else did I, oh yeah, also got this one I'm really excited about. This was, sometimes we come across models and it's the nose art, or the nose art, the box art that catches our attention, and that's absolutely what happened to me this time around. So the Devastator, I've never had interest in building this aircraft, but this trainer scheme, just, I fell in love with it immediately. I looked at the box art, I was like, oh, what the heck is that? So I started to look around for other builds of it that other people had done and other pictures of it, and found some Time magazine, I guess it would be in the 40s, put out some color photos of this aircraft on an aircraft carrier while they're in action, and just blew my mind. I mean, how beautiful and sharp these colors are on the vehicle. It was a no-brainer for me. I'm really into flashy paint jobs. I mean, given this, you know, red, white, and blue F-16 I'm about to do here. Yeah, so it's the box art that sold me on this one. I believe, if I remember right, I haven't really opened it yet, I believe that it comes with masking for the canopy, where, you know, I'm not a big fan of canopy masks, pre-made ones. I kind of like doing it on my own. I know I'm a glutton for punishment. But, oh yeah, it looks like, okay, on the, no, photo etch parts decal. I think I read somewhere that it came with it. Either way, whether it comes with them or not, and I have to purchase my own, I will purchase them. This will be the exception to my rule of not using pre-cut masks, because this is just crazy. But yeah, I can fold the wings on it, which is also looks beautiful. I've got lots of options, so I'm really, really excited about this aircraft for the paint job. Yeah, that should be a lot of fun. That might be next. We'll see. I've got I'm really happy with my stash right now. Those of you that are from the area that I'm at, you know, Bay Area, they're Silicon Valley Scale Modelers holds a contest every year, at the same location that the Fremont Hornets. Yeah, here we go. These two. Tri-City Classic. Okay, got a little cup holder, and the IPMS Hornets. They hold their contests. One will be like in the June time. The other one will be in November. Fremont is November roughly, and Tri-City SVSM is in the June. Well, SVSM for whatever reason could not get the venue for the June contest, and I think it would have actually been this weekend. In fact, it probably would have been today, quite frankly. If they, I think this was the day that they were hoping to get it, but they were not able to secure the day. So not having the opportunity to sort of get more models for the stash, whether it's just buying them for the vendors or the raffles, I decided I've been the last couple of months just getting models and just purchasing them from hobby shops and whatnot. So yeah, just trying to keep that the stash replenished. Got my buddy Arnell on here too, who's holding a Super Saber for me. At one of these days, I will make it over. You only live like 10 minutes away from me, apparently. So, but one of these days, we'll find a time where I can pick that up from you. Yeah, really excited about Burbank. Yeah, it should be fun. I told my wife, I said, I'll get 3 kits. That way each of the kids can sort of say, okay, this is the kit I got you, Daddy. But I will not let them pick them out. I will pick them out. I'll make sure I'm really clear about that. I was so excited. I even went on their website today and was like, okay, what do they have in stock? To kind of hunt some stuff down and be a little bit prepared. But we're gonna get to the area around noontime, and I believe our room won't be ready until later afternoon. So I could potentially be there for about at least an hour and a half. We'll see how the kids feel about that, but we'll see. Yeah, thank you, Arnell. I appreciate that, bud. That's great. Arnell, when I make it over to your place too, I'll bring a little extra cash in case there's anything else I want to pick up from you on the spot. Also, I don't know if you guys know about this, but Andy's Hobbies, they have a new set of 2 M3 half tracks in 1/35th scale. I think it's just 2 kits in 1 box. Really excited. I saw that yesterday. I was like, what the heck? I'm a big half track fan. I've only ever built one as a kid, and one, actually, the very first model I built once COVID hit that got me back into model building in a big way was the half track. It was a Dragon kit sitting right up there. And so I love the look of the half track, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna pre-order it. I don't think I've ever pre-ordered a kit at this point, but I've heard really good things about the Andy Hobbies kits. I believe they are made at the Tacom manufacturing plant, so they're going to be good quality. I love the Tacom kits. And I haven't built armor in a while, and I wasn't planning on really buying anything armor related, but that deal I think it came to like $60 for $60 for 2 half tracks. I'm gonna build those at some point for sure. That seemed like a steal to me. So yeah, the M3 and M3A1, you got it. Yeah, that's dangerous. Oh man, that was total impulse buy. Yeah. Okay, they are smaller compared to the normal F-16C. Okay, so smaller than the YF-16, is that what you're referring to? Let me take a look at the... Sorry about the excess noise there. Let's take a look here. All right. Oh, I might be missing a sprue somewhere around here. Oh, that's all right. Let's take a look. Yeah, I've got this piece, which has, these are the pieces that go into here. And I can't seem to find that other sprue. That would be funny if I bought this kit and it was missing the entire sprue. All right, well, that's sitting around somewhere. I can't really compare it at this point. But I'll be sure to look for that. Is that what you're referring to? Oh, the horizontal stabilizers. Okay, hang on. Am I misreading you? Yes, okay, yeah, that's what we just talked about, right? They are smaller than the F-16C, right? Which is essentially this one. And so that's why I've got them a little bit smaller here. They'd be real clear, yeah. Okay, good. So I think we're on the same level. Yeah, we're on the level here. Yeah, I did cut. They're a little bit larger than the YF, which is what I saw diagrams showing that explained that. And then they are also smaller than the F-16C, as you can see here. Does that make sense? Yeah? Let me know. Oh, sorry, I keep hitting that camera. It's probably dizzying for you guys. Let me know if I'm doing it right. Again, happy to make any adjustments. Would love your input on that, if anybody knows any differently. There's been a lot written about the YFs and the F-16s, and they even get it a little bit wrong in some of these books. You know, they explain that they said the stem cell seat was used in the YF-16, and other research I see and other photographs show that they use the Escapac in the YF-16. So, even, you know, it's hard to keep track of everything. Okay. Shizuka Hobby Show. Visit the new Tamiya model factory, Toko Shinbashi. Yeah. Yeah, that would be pretty neat, Arnell. A lot of history, I'm sure, there. Yeah, that's sort of... I love the Tamiya kit so much, and it would be really neat to, like, find a way to visit and see the history of how those are built. And there seems to be with them such an appreciation for what they do, right? I'm sure every manufacturer, like, on some level loves what they do, but there really seems to be this level of attention that I don't know, I feel it when I work on their models, you know? And as I'm building a Tamiya kit, I'm just in awe of, like, how well things go together and how well the details are made, and the fit and all that, the decals, everything about the Tamiya kits are just wonderful. I mean, there's always something that we can all complain about, right? But I find that the Tamiya kits, just in general, it's like there's so little to complain about. You know, it's even unfair for me to, like, look at, like, this F-16 Tamiya kit, you know, and say, oh, it's got raised panel lines. Like, how dare I, you know? That's probably 50 years old at this point, you know? And so yeah, it's, and it was probably state of the art at the time it came out. And that's just, it seems typical of Tamiya to be state of the art. Waiting for Tamiya, yeah, to release an F4J Phantom, yep. They did was the 32nd scale F4B. I think that was our last Phantom, is that right? Yeah, I got the, I'm going to pronounce the name incorrectly because it's not in front of me. Zoke Mora, the ZM version of the F4J. Pick that up in this hunt for more kits in the last couple of months here. I plan to do the Showtime 100, the Cunningham aircraft. I love the black and the gray, and the eagle on the fin, and I just absolutely always love the look of that model. And of course, you know, Monogram had their Showtime 100 kit, and the nostalgia of that. So yeah, Zuke Mura. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Yeah, that's the version I'll be using, and then I've got some aftermarket decals for the Showtime 100. That kit should come up pretty quick too. I'm kind of in this nostalgic monogram phase, and that would absolutely fit the program, so to speak. I'm curious, what's your favorite kit? What's your favorite kit that you've built? Yeah. You want them to release the F4B? Yeah, it's. I guess it's smart because they're not building the exact same version, right? So you go to one company for this one and one company for that one. But it does seem like if they have the molds there, switching off these slightly different versions. Although I don't know the difference between the B and J. It might be dramatic, at least on the airframe itself. Yeah. I got several books on it on the Phantom. I'll definitely, when I dig into that J, the Showtime 100, I'll be digging in and finding out more information about them. Yeah. Favorite kit? Anybody got a favorite kit right now? Maybe it's the one you're working on, maybe not. Speaking of excellent Tamiya kits, I've got the P38. The Marge one with the painting of the pilot's wife, Marge, I believe her name is. The silver one. I plan to do that one. And I understand that kit was like, I think for many it was considered like the best kit of the year that it came out. I can't remember if it was like 2023 or 22 or something. It just, yeah. So I really, and in fact, that one I won at a raffle. I think it was either the Fremont contest or the other one. I was pretty stoked to get that. When I win stuff from raffles, I really intend on, I say to myself, you have to build it. I can't just, somebody essentially gifted this to you, and it would be a shame for it to just sit in the stash. So I always try to make a point of eventually like getting to those and yeah. I was gifted just a great guy at SVSM. He had a 1/32 scale F-16, the Academy kit. And he won the raffle for that. And I just happened to be standing like next to him and his wife. And he's like, "Here, Jason, you take it." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" He's like, "No, I don't need it. Go ahead." And he would make like model like kits of like bugs and stuff. So he was very eccentric. He would do like cars and then he would do ships. So he just never he wasn't like stuck on doing aircraft. But I was certainly at the time. And his name was Steve, and I was like so taken aback by that generosity, And that's really one of the things I love about contests and meeting all you guys there. Is just the opportunity to sort of like, you see a kid, and they've got their raffle tickets. They got 2 raffle tickets, and I sit here and I bought $40 worth of tickets. So, I'm going to win something. And at some point I get to the point where like, I got enough, so I just, just hand it over to the kid and their eyes light up and their parents are shocked. They're like, "Well, what are you doing?" That feels so good. And it feels like every time I do that, I think about Steve and what an opportunity he gave. And, when modelers do that, I got another friend, Chip, who just, was like, "Hey, you want this kit?" "I don't want it." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And another friend, Ton, does that to me as well. He just hands me stuff that he doesn't build armor at all. So he would just hand me the armor kits. I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" It's just that generosity, that spirit of giving it to somebody else is just really, really great. I love that about the community. Yep, Steve Travis, that's exactly who it was. Yeah, and to this day they have an award in his name for kind of quirky, the best quirky build. Yeah, Steve Travis and I can't remember his wife's name, but she was so sweet. She was just like he was, just so giving and so just really great. And Arnell, you and I know each other from when I worked at Hobbytown USA for a good 4 years. I loved it there. I always say if they hadn't closed down, I'd still be working there Not true, of course. It was a part-time job, but boy, I love that gig. That was so fun. And yeah, Steve was, he actually worked there for a little while. That's right. He was retired and he wanted to get a little extra cash and he worked there. And then there's a point where he stopped working there and I would meet him only at the contest, but it was great to see him again. Yeah, rest in peace, Steve. Absolutely. Oh, Anita, thank you. That's wonderful, Arnell. I appreciate that. Yep. Such great people. Yeah, that's on Connor. That's so great. Always get my club get tickets to kids. That's great. I love that that's a thing. So cool. So special. And you know, in a way, it's selfish too, because when we get the younger generation, when they have an interest in the models, then they're going to go out and start purchasing when they can, you know, and then it helps us in the long run, because then these companies are able to survive. You know, it's cyclical, right? Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yep. The owners were. Yeah. Absolutely. Owners were not the best. There were issues at this hobby town for sure. For sure. Yeah. That's a whole discussion. I'd be happy to have with you in person. Maybe not online, but yeah. That's a fun one. A lot of opinions. Need to pass on to the hobby somehow. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to build at this point, guys. It's fun to just sit here and chat. Right. And it's not just because we're running out of room in the carpool. Absolutely. Of course not. That's not what it is. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I'm in a position where I'll go to the contest. My other friend Eric will meet me there, so he's got his truck, and then my wife and kids will show up later, because it's hard. I've tried this before with them, where 3 kids and a wife, and we go from like 8:30, doors open at 9, and stay till like 4:30, the end of the awards. And that's a long time to sit in that little room. So I worked it out with my wife, where they just come later, or I'll bring one kid with me early, and they're able to stand it, And then so we end up with basically 3 vehicles, right? So loading up these vehicles not so difficult. Yeah. But I can understand if you're carpooling with somebody, yeah, you need the room. Yeah, that's another issue I gotta kind of iron out, is how I travel with models. Just moving them from the display case to the contest. The contests aren't terribly far away, maybe 15 minutes away. But living on a hill, so I got some bumps to contend with, and then there's a lot of turns, and I feel like each contest I kind of relearn a way to like secure them to the box that I'm transporting them in, and without fail, even with all the ways that I have of sort of transporting them, something pops off. One contest I brought the Mirage, and one of the antenna popped off on the top. Nobody noticed. Nobody cared. She took first in the category, in a category of I think like 15 other jets. It was wild. I'm like, how did that? And it was fine, right? I think one of the rules for the judges is to not go, okay, well, this particular aircraft should have this size of antenna on it. I think ultimately we're looking at, is the construction good? Is the paint good? Is the more basic things. So I think all of that came into play, and I feel like nobody looked at the antenna. Same thing happened at the last contest I went to. I brought the A4 Skyhawk. There's a little, one of the lights on the main gear, one of the side main gear popped off. I don't even think I noticed it until I took it home. And so at the contest it sat, and it was there, and it took second, I think, in the category. Now maybe that was why it took second, I don't know. But there were quite a few other jets in that category. So yeah, it's just one of those things where if it's not really noticeable, you're going to be okay. But I also will bring a box of glues and other things with me. And sometimes I say, oh, is it worth fussing over and breaking out the tweezers and, you know, yeah. Favorite model kit is hopefully soon to be released, 35 Tamiya M24 Chaffee. Okay. You have to go a few hours depending on who's driving is a bit quicker, allegedly. I see. Yep. M20. So Tamiya is going to release a Chaffee, huh? That is interesting. Okay, so I got the what company was it? Oh, AFV Club. I got the AFV Club M24. I think I got the hull put together, the wheels on, and was working on the tracks next. And again, that's just became a shelf queen. It just didn't. It's sitting in a box in my garage, waiting to be finished. But yeah, Tamiya M24, that could be pretty cool. I think Italeri did one. They had one out for a while. And I feel like that was it, right? So Tamiya never did a Chaffee. That is a cool looking tank. It's definitely a light tank. I was surprised how little it was when I started the AFV Club. It was like, you know, that big. But yeah, it's just got a great look to it. I don't know. Like when I think of like how would a kid draw a World War II tank? I feel like that's a pretty darn good basic description of a tank. The hull was warped. Oh, crap. Okay. I didn't have really any warping issues with the AFV Club kits. I really lucked out. I'm trying to think. Oh, you know, the M113 might have had a little bit, but I don't think it was, I think it was barely noticeable. But I've had really good luck with the AFV Club kits. I would say probably a third of the armor models I've built. And I'm looking up here because I'll tell you what. Can you guys don't freak out with what I'm doing here on the screen, okay? There we go. Here's a bunch of my armor models. I don't know if I can get a better shot. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I would say about a third of these are AFV Club. I really, really like AFV Club. Hopefully that's not too jarring visually for you guys. Sorry about that. That's why I keep looking up here. All right. Let's see if I can set this right. There we go. Yeah, I really like that company. I think they do. I know one of the complaints about AFV Club is over-engineered, right? They'll have the smallest pieces that you need to attach to the hull or to the turret, and that can be frustrating. I get it. Sometimes I say, well, I would probably scratch build that piece anyway, so it's better to just have it ready to go. Oh, they reboxed the Italian one. Oh, okay. So Tamiya, hold on. So Tamiya reboxed the Italeri one. And so then now Tamiya's going to do a new tooling. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Or did AFV Club do the tooling? I don't think they use the Italeri. I don't think I think only Tamiya retools the Italeri or Italeri, however you pronounce that. Got an AFV Club Centurion. Yeah, I mean, great, Connor. I love that. I'll definitely check that video out. Correct. Okay, so yeah, so Tamiya did the retooling of the Italeri, and then now they're like, let's do our own. Or, sorry, they took the tooling of the Italeri kit, reboxed it. They probably made some new instructions for it. I think they did that, I believe, with the The M107. Yeah, I had the Italeri kit, the M107. It was called Mad Dog, I think they called it at the time, the big long gun. And then Tamiya took that Italeri kit, and they actually used the same molds, but they poured new plastic, so you don't get all the short shot issues that I had with the Italeri kit. And then AFV Club, a couple years later, came out with their own version of it, and that's the one that I built, sitting right up there. And that was over-engineered. I will agree with some people on the over, but again, it was a situation where it's like I'd rather have too much than too little. But there was a lot. There was a lot on that thing, but it was a darn fun kit to build. I love the M107. That's another one that, because of the Italeri kit, just nostalgia for me. First iteration of the U.S. torsion bar suspension followed by the T26E3. Okay. The T26, is that that's an American tank, I think, that didn't quite make it into World War II. Is that what we're talking about? I'm not quite sure. Yeah. I'm wondering if I should just go ahead and glue this piece on, and then we'll see if we go from there. Oh, another thing that I did here, I do want to show you. I drilled out for this vent as well. I'm forgetting exactly what this vent was for. But again, I cut it from the back and then just reshaped these sort of square pieces. Worked out well. So I'm kind of a fan right now of like opening up vents and stuff. I think not all vents need to do that. There was a couple of vents on the tail of the Crusader that literally, if I opened them up, it would look wrong. Like the way that they had them set up was correct, even though it was just molded on. But there are some situations where I'm tempted. I did my first real vent opening, if you will, on the I think it was the T33, the Great Wall Hobby 48 scale kit. That was kind of the first time I was like, let me give this a shot. And then on the F100, I did it was the F101, the Voodoo, the Canadian Lynx. That one I opened up some vents too, because I actually had to some of the vents were wrong. They were supposed to be like a circular shape, and they mold them out as a square shape, and they were on the wrong side of the aircraft. So I went to town on that one. But yeah, that was, once I started to do it, I was like, I started, it's like I'm walking around with a hammer and I'm looking for nails, and I'm finding nails everywhere, right? Now I'm looking at the vents and like, what can I kind of drill out? So it's been pretty fun. Yeah, I think I'm just going to go ahead now and set this piece in and figure out how I'm going to attach it to the model. And then at a later point, I'll kind of work off some of this paint. I don't think I really needed to sand it a whole. Oh, you know what? Sorry. I'm seeing some up here on the lip that I may want to take care of now. And let me see if I can remember how to. Might have to use something a little bit more here. It came off pretty easily. Watch, it's not going to come off easily now. Yeah, it's just kind of scraping off. All right, I'm going to take care of this real quick. Probably not the most exciting thing to watch on video, but certainly encourage you to, if you're working on your own model, keep at it. What are you guys working on? Oh, you already told me what you're working on right now, I think, yeah. Anybody currently working on, like literally right this second working on a model? Let us know. Also, you know what I'd like to do? I would like to find a resource to find out about new kits that are coming out, because I don't have any place that I kind of go to find that information. I feel like I'm always just kind of stumbling upon the information. Arnell, I feel like you've got, like, you know what's coming out. Is there like an outline catalog that you're privy to or that you could share with us? Let me know if you guys, where you go for your sources. Do you go to like Andy Hobby headquarters and watch his videos and he talks about stuff? I just want to know like upcoming releases of kits, where I can find that information and where maybe you feel like it's your spot to go. Yeah, I'm going to want to clean this area up. I know what'll happen is I'll just attach it just for the sake of gluing something, and then I'll keep looking at the spot and go, oh, I wish I hadn't been so quick to just throw that up there. Yeah, let's just keep at it. It's kind of killing my sanding sticks here. As far as the colors on this, I've been looking at comparing the colors to the Tamiya red. I think it's XF7 and the Tamiya basic blue color. I think that's XF5, I think that's right. And I've been trying to see if if I need to adjust the shades on any of those colors, and I don't think that I do. I think I could just use them right out of the bottle. I'll do a little bit of testing just to see if that's the case. But if I could just use them right out of the bottle, I think that'd be pretty great. Working with blue, I find blue can be really finicky. Adding really any color to blue only makes the blue less brilliant. And so, like, I can add a little bit of yellow and bring it to be a little bit green, but then it just, I don't know, any color I add to it, you would think would kind of force it in one direction. But I think this is the nature of the primary colors, right? Like if I try to force it in one direction, either on the greenish side of blue or the reddish side of blue, it dulls it in a way. And so if I can find the blue and the right red and not have to mix anything, I think that's ultimately what I'm looking for. Yeah, I think that's just the nature, though, of the primary colors, because the other colors, the secondary colors, of course, are a combination of two colors. So you can use a little more, a little bit less of that other color and move it along into that space while still feeling like it's orange or it's green. This is getting into a little bit of color theory, which I will not claim to know. I do like to watch videos occasionally by painters, of people who paint on canvas and that sort of thing, just to see them at work and see if there's anything we can use in the hobby. There's a lot, of course, but yeah, the color theory side is very interesting to me, but just not something I've gotten into and will not claim to really know. All right, one thing I want to do now is kind of dig out some of the paint that's sitting in these panel lines. Oh yeah, panel lines. Let's talk about panel lines. I will absolutely not be doing a wash on this model. Every single picture, every picture I see of these aircraft, there is not a bit of panel. There are panel lines, but you can barely see them, and they certainly do not look darker. There will be no pre-washing. There'll be no pre-shading, anything like that. Just straight paint, straight on the model. And I'm really excited about that, to just kind of see how it looks. I know we're so used to panel lines, but it would be absolutely wrong to do it on this model. And nobody's going to convince me otherwise. I'm absolutely convinced of that. The same thing was true when I built the T-33. I don't think that I put any wash on the exterior at all. Although I might have put just a little bit in the vents. And if I were to do anything, you know, a little bit in some of the vents, or see like this little like hole here, right? I might put a little bit, but nope, not gonna do in the panels, not gonna do in the rivets. Here's a good example of what I mean. In this picture here, you know, they've depicted the F-16, the FSD version. By the way, this photo's completely inaccurate. It's the wrong seat. They've got these antennae which should not be here. This I can't remember exactly what this is called. There's a five-letter name for this, but this antenna essentially should not be there on this version of the model of the aircraft. This font is all wrong here. Okay, it's the cover of the book, no big deal. But you can see they've got the panel lines, you know, deepened as if a modeler was building it, you know, but you look at the actual photos of the aircraft. I mean, it's just nowhere can you see the panel lines like that. Yeah, what I see are these red walkway stripes. But look, I mean, look how there's nothing there. There's no depth. Yeah, so I'm gonna absolutely stay away from that. And I like that. I want to build this model kind of like I would have, like I imagined it in my mind building it with my father, right? And that was, you know, we're talking late 80s, early 90s, you know, where we weren't doing these kind of washes. Some advanced modelers might have been doing something along those lines, but certainly the F-16, that F-16 kit, the box art wouldn't have shown that, you know. So another reason to not use the wash. How do you guys feel about using washes? Are you guys fans? Do you use the Tamiya panel liner stuff? What do you like to use? Do you find it too difficult sometimes to work with, or have you kind of got it down? Let me know. Okay, let me catch up on some of these chat here. Incorrect. T26E3, M26 Pershing. I'm not sure what you mean, Arnell. I'm sorry, bud. Are you saying that the T26 is the M26 Pershing, or am I thinking of the M26 Pershing and not the T26? I'm thinking back in my mind to. I'm sure you guys know Night Shift, the modeler on YouTube, Night Shift. Really, really great guy. Super. I reached out to him early in the YouTubing career and asked him a couple questions. And at the time, my name was Hobby Wan Kenobi. He's like, "Oh, I think that's a great name." Unfortunately, had to change it. But he was very, very supportive and really cool. But yeah, when I think of the T26, I think he built one, so I'm not sure that I know a lot about it. Squadron TV on YouTube. Okay, Wednesday evening, 6 to 9. I will be freaking there. PDT 6 p.m. Wonderful. Oh, I'll be there, man. I forgot about the Squadron online stuff, and in the past, I haven't been able to, because if you know anything about me, I'm a conductor of a local concert band here, and our rehearsal, hence the name Modeling Maestro. I'm a composer and a conductor, as well as being a music teacher. So our ensemble rehearses Wednesday evenings. And so Wednesday evenings have been historically difficult for me to watch that Squadron TV. But I imagine I don't have to watch it live either, right? Yeah? Okay. I don't know why I haven't. I got to get over to their page and find those videos. But this Wednesday, there's no reason why I couldn't join, because we're done with that group for the summer. Cool. Good to know. Currently large news is Dragon selling off. Yes, I'm aware of the Dragon Zemi models situation, yeah. They sent out one memo initially and people were like, uh-oh, they're going straight to like 3D printing or something. And then they reiterated in a second one and it seemed like, yeah, they're going to be, the collaboration will be Drami models, which I think is a terrible name. I think they could have found something better. Zegon or I don't know, Drami is just like, doesn't do it for me. But yeah, it looks like they're going to continue to, I think Zimi, the Zimi portion of Drami will be, they'll use the molds, I believe, from Dragon, and then Dragon will go in a slightly different direction. I'm not entirely sure if that's the case, but that's what it seemed like to me. Greg has the Edward 148 SE5A on the bench at the moment, up to paint, but have stopped, as I don't think the El Cheapo Mr. Bezos airbrush, Mr. Bezos airbrush is any good. Fair. Looking at picking up Mr. Hobby PS289. Yeah, Mr. Hobby airbrushes are great. I will vouch for those. Highly recommend them. It's what I'm using at the moment, and it's been super reliable. In fact, the only time it wasn't reliable was when I accidentally dropped it and had to get a replacement part from Spray Gunner. Very fast shipping though. I'm not saying that they inconvenienced me in any way. It was just the fact that I messed up and broke the darn thing. That was the only issue I had with it. My own fault. So if you can, get over to Spray Gunner once you get your airbrush, or any place, and just find a couple of extra spare parts. To me, it's worth it. I don't want to have to wait another week and a half or so for another part to come when I've already got the time kind of scheduled out to do the airbrushing. Airbrushing is something that I do regularly. I would say, even though I'm in construction mode, like you can see I airbrushed the cockpit gray on there, hand painted the black. But I'm using the airbrush as I go, and the last thing I want is it to feel like, okay, now it's a slog. Now I have to like get everything together and get the airbrush working properly. Like I've got it ready to go every single time. Currently working on, so Arnell's working on the 35th scale TACM PL01 prototype modern Polish light tank. Very cool. Plan on painting a digital NATO camo scheme in Ukrainian markings. Holy cow. Arnell, when you get a second, can you message me just a photo of what that will look like? That sounds really neat. T-2063 was the grandfather of all U.S. modern tanks leading up to the M60 patent. Okay, great. Now it's making sense. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Yeah, okay, yes. Okay, it's got a very distinct looking turret now that I remember. Okay. Thanks, bud. Now it's making sense. 50-50 on wash. I kind of like my things clean. Yeah, Connor, I agree with you, man. There are times where it's appropriate to dirty them up. I think my A6 was appropriately dirty. And then pretty much that's it. I think the Sky Raider was appropriate dirty, and then everything else I like clean. Because this is the way I look at it, right? You could go absolutely crazy on the weathering, right? So that's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is perfectly clean. Now, in my opinion, every aircraft starts off pretty clean, right? Because they're leaving the hangar bay, they're leaving their manufacturing plant, they've just been painted. And granted, once they get on that tarmac, there's probably already accumulating and probably already starting to fade. But at some point, they're already really, really clean. I don't know that every aircraft ends up really, really dirty. So for me, it's, and also I like the aesthetic. I like the aesthetic of a cleaner aircraft. I feel like I'm admiring the shape of the aircraft. I'm looking at the contour and, You know, it just looks like an F-16. The more grime I add, the more realistic it may look. You know, if we're in use on you know, on a carrier, not an F-16 obviously, but an F-14 on a carrier is gonna build up a lot of staining and whatnot, and it'll look more realistic. But sometimes it takes away from the look of the F-14. So, anyway, I understand that. I agree with you generally, Connor, that I'd err on the side of cleaner rather than really, really dirty. All right, let's keep going here. T-2063 was rushed into ETO into, yes, okay. After Battle of the Bulge, Zebra mission. Gotcha. The European campaign. Zimmy was a spin-off of Kitty Hawk, I believe. No kidding. Okay, I wasn't sure if the Kitty Hawk molds were purchased. So Zimmy got those. That's cool. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Kitty Hawk did a lot of great stuff, including the F-101 that I have. Yeah, and then a lot of helicopters that everybody's like still trying to hunt those down, and the prices are crazy. That's great. Wow. Cool stuff. Good information. Okay, so I think it looks like I'm going to check out Squadron TV. That's wonderful. I've also been, I'm a member of IPMS, so I get their magazine. I think their magazine, second one just came out, so I got to get to the mailbox as soon as I can and see the latest copy. But I think if I remember right, in that magazine at the end, they also talk about upcoming releases. And I decided to redo my issue or re-up my issues of Fine Scale Modeler. I'm always kind of back and forth about Fine Scale Modeler. And they're always like, hey, we'll give you a deal on it. It's like, and you get a free gift. And it's like, oh, okay, a PDF, you know, how to build models, basically. But it's like, sometimes I'm like, is it really worth the money? And then sometimes I'm like, yeah, it's worth it. So a couple days ago, re-upped it, and we'll be getting those issues. And I remember at the end of those magazines as well, they talked about upcoming releases. So yeah, that's great. Super helpful. Well-maintained aircraft looks cleaner on an airbase. Yep, absolutely true. Absolutely true. And I mean, if you're building a Hellas, a Greek A7 Corsair, you're gonna want it dirty. That's probably why you're building that aircraft, But if I'm building a Snodgrass's F-14 out of Miramar, and he's going to put it through his paces for sure, but it's not going to have, that F-14 is not going to have the same look as a F-14D, F-14D on the USS Roosevelt or something, or whatever carrier, those were stationed on, the Carl Vinson, or I can't remember now, but yeah, I don't know. I know there are certain aircraft where I'm like, okay, I'm going to go for weathering, and therefore I'm going to build this version. But for me, a lot of the times it's like I want to build the early version of an aircraft, which is why I'm right now into this A4C instead of the A4E and the M. Why did the A6A intruder and not the A6E with the tram and all that? I like the early stuff. So, and in that, what happens is they're cleaner. Yeah, saltwater corrosion, absolutely. Yep. And they're still always cleaning those things. I mean, they have standards, in the Navy and the Air Force and the Marines. They have standards on keeping these vehicles cleaned up. All right. Has any of you guys served in the military in any capacity? Just curious. I have not. but just curious if anybody has, and if you have, certainly thank you for your service. And if you guys have any plans for the 4th of July being a pretty big celebration this year, every 4th of July, my band goes to the Morgan Hill Parade. That's a city near us, maybe about 40 minutes away or so. And we all get on the back of a truck and sit on haystacks and or hay bales and play a bunch of Sousa songs, Sousa marches. And so if you happen to be there, I'll be there waving to the crowd and conducting at the same time. It's always fun. It's supposed to be a big event this year because of the 250th anniversary of the United States. All right. I feel like we're good. So, time to attach. Try to be real careful to not squeeze it too much. Okay. Yeah, that feels good. You can hear it's a little bit squeaky. I think we'll be good though. I'm going to need to hold it in this spot here, and I'm a little bit worried about using extra thin for this. Because if I'm pressing pieces against each other, what tends to happen is the extra thin, you guys will know this, it'll start to ooze out. And a lot of times we want that. We want the oozing, the plastic to ooze. It sort of fills in that gap. But I'm pretty sure these panel lines here should be there. Yeah, those should be panel lines. So I got to think about what's the best way to tackle this and still be a little bit stronger is not the right word. To hold its place faster than the Tamiya Extra Thin. All right, I think the correct answer here is CA glue. Let me know in the chat what you guys think. How would you guys go about this? Would you just use Tamiya Thin? Would you have something else you like to use? All right. I think what I'm going to do is make sure this is all sanded down. You can see I'm just a lot of dry fitting here, just making sure everything looks just right. I want to make sure this is flush. I'm going to get my old man goggles on here for a second. Oh, I'm sitting here attaching this thing and probably going to forget about this piece. Let me attach that next. All right. The way I'm going to do this, I'm not going to use Tamiya Extra Thin because I would be gluing paint on paint, and that's not going to be great. So I'm going to add just a little bit of CA glue around it, and that should be enough to hold it in. And I want to make sure it's turned properly because I need the flattest point at the top. Okay, all right, let's use a little bit of weather depends on the subject. Lower-sea planes and helicopters flying off unfinished fields would deserve heavier weathering compared to modern planes. Operating from aircraft carriers depends on scale. I totally agree, Greg. Absolutely agree. Yeah, I think what I'm saying is not that I would make every model clean, but I gravitate to the models that would be cleaner than other aircraft, right? So let me see what I mean. A vehicle maybe early in the war, or an aircraft early in the war, or one where there's a lot of standards about keeping it clean. Those are the aircraft that I gravitate to. Therefore, the models I build are going to be cleaner generally, if that makes sense. Yeah. Retired Air Force. Jim, thank you for your service, sir. Wow. Wonderful. Me and my family were thinking about going to Fort Niagara for the big French and Indian War reenactment. Oh, Connor, that is neat. Yeah, that's right. You do war reenactments. That's fantastic. That is pretty cool. CA glue if you want to fill seams and have stronger bond, but that's why you're the Maestro. Well, yeah, I'm going to go with CA. I'm hoping to not have the seam filled again, but a stronger bond, okay? So let's see here. Okay, let's first get the glue going on the piece here. Use a little bit of capillary action, if you will, just let it fill in. I don't need a lot of it here, just a couple of spots is enough. What I don't want is for it to pop off in the model after I've glued everything and I can't get to it anymore, right? I've always said to myself, if this intake situation doesn't work out, I reserve the right to put a FOD cover on it. I was worried about that just because I thought, well, at first I didn't see a lot of photos with the FSD covers on the Ys and the FSDs of the F-16, but I started to come across a couple of them. I was like, okay. And they actually, you know, they dress them up too, right? The FOD covers are going to have the emblem, or it'll say F-16 on it, or whatever base they're stationed at. So, and they're quite colorful in some situations, which is neat. So I've always said that, like, if it doesn't work out, you put in a lot of work and that's a bummer, but you've got an easy fix. So, but I really wanted to go further on this one. It's my understanding that even the kinetic, and you guys can maybe attest to this, the kinetic F-16s also have a bulkhead and don't actually represent any engine in the intake. So if that's true, let me know if you know about that. I thought I read that somewhere and I was really surprised that even the new models of the F-16, I don't think there's anyone out there, any model of the F-16 that actually represents the intake properly, unless it's like the F-16, you know, 30-second scale or something. I think I read that somewhere. All right, so I'll certainly put, in fact, I'll probably do extra thin along here. But I'm going to put some CA right around here. So when I hold it in place, hopefully it just stays. All right. There's some little dimples there I'm not really a big fan of right now. I don't know what that's all about. Let's see here. Give me a second. Yeah, I've got some dimples here that look like, I feel like I carved the plastic a little bit. So I'm a little worried about that. Let me fix this problem first. I think that's something that I did to it. All right, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna, well, let's do this. Let me do this the right way. I'm gonna bite the end of this toothpick here, not the side with the glue, by the way. Okay. Making a little fan shape, okay? I'm gonna take my accelerator. I love this stuff. By the way, I really recommend, if you got that spray Zap-A-Gap, don't spray all of that onto the model. You're wasting a lot of it. Put it into a jar, you know, it seals real good. I bought a large bottle of Zap-A-Gap. I've got 96% of the bottle still. I've got it in storage. It's dark. It's, you know, room temperature. And I've used this jar of accelerator for probably 2 or 3 years now. Okay, so you don't have to waste your money. Just use a drop at a time. So I just dip some in here, and all I'm going to do, I'll take a little bit off, but I'm going to apply it to the model. Now it's going to evaporate most of it. Most of it's going to evaporate, but if I can put a drop here, it actually allows it to sort of fill and dry pretty darn quickly. All right. So I'm just trying to fix these little indentations that I inadvertently created on my own here. Oh, careful. Got a little too much there. It's good. So I'm just trying to build up that corner, these 2 little corners here. Okay, I can take the accelerator again, the other side of the toothpick, you know, and just put it near it, and it just drips. And what's really interesting is I've read somewhere that even the fumes of the accelerator is enough to affect the super glue. So you don't need a lot of this stuff. I'm just going to keep building it up. All right, now you can see here at the line, there's some that's extending over, and that's what I want. That means it's filled up pretty good. Let's go back here, make sure it's on the top. I'm creating these little dimples of dried glue, and then I'll sand them flush, and I'll get rid of those pieces. All right. Use tape to hold it in spot, and spot weld with CA, then extra thin when set up for the rest. Yeah, I like putting CA, using CA in certain spots, and then once it's dry, then I'll go ahead and do a little bit extra thin just to make sure that the other pieces are secure as well. Use tape to hold it. Yeah, I'm gonna stay away from the tape for now. Well, I can also use a glue looper and some thin super glue I've got here. I need to make sure though that it runs down and still preserves the seam. Okay, I think I'm probably gonna have enough medium viscosity or medium viscosity of CA and then the thinner CA, and just have little puddles kind of ready so I can tackle this quickly. All right, let's take a look here. I'm going to sand these pieces down now. Might be time to get some more sanding sticks. You guys use sanding sticks? Are you a fan? Do you use metal files instead or as well? Let me know in the chat. I'd like to know. I use both. I use sanding sticks most of the time. And particularly these shaped ones, I like these a lot. They're just from Amazon. Pretty cheap. See, I don't want to back in. By doing this, I'm kind of backing into the back part of it and starting to shave that away as well. So this might have been how I accidentally created these little dimples, was shaving some. See, I'm doing that too. Darn it, I'm not being careful. I'm not being careful because I'm on this live stream here. That's what's going on. All right, that's okay. Let's watch out. Yeah, I'll tell you, it's not easy building when you're trying to think of a video, but that's all right. And do you guys use visors as well? All right. That's pretty good. Now I got to go on this angle to sharpen the edge a bit. All right, Greg, taking off. Thanks for joining us, man. I think the last time we set up at Fort Niagara was 2013. So when you were 10 years old. That's awesome. Oh, so Connor, I was in the impression that you just did it, but it sounds like your whole family's into it. That's fantastic. That is really great. I mean, yeah, obviously when you're 10, you're probably not just doing it for yourself. That is so cool. Do you own like a stock of uniforms, or are they rented out? Like how does that work? I imagine acquiring the pieces for the uniforms probably just as fun as the actual reenactments, right? Is that the case? Oh yeah, the glass files. Yeah, Connor, I looked into those a little bit. I need to do a little more research still. But I liked what I saw. Thanks for that suggestion. Yeah, if you're interested, guys, Connor's got a YouTube channel that he started up. And Connor, if you want, go ahead and drop your the link there and share it with everybody. And would be great if you guys checked it out. All right, much better. I'm gonna feel so much better about that. Good. You know, sometimes it's like, you know, you move one step forward and you take 2 steps back kind of thing, but that's just part of the game, right? All right. So once it's in place, I have a little bit of wiggle room to get it to where I need. I'm going to need to put a spot. Let me go ahead and mark these just right about here. This side's okay. I'm not going to be worried about that. And kind of like in this area. All right. Okay, so let's do it that way. And then I don't think I'm going to need the thin CA at this point. I don't need to rush into it. I'm just going to get it in place. Let's take just a whole new one. I'm going to have the accelerator open and ready to go in case I need to use it. Again, I'm flattening the end of the toothpick so it sort of soaks up the accelerator a little bit faster. I almost called it accelerator or accelerator. That's an Italian word. Accelerando is an Italian word we use in music. And I say that word, accelerando, a lot more than I say accelerator. So, oh, that's so funny. All right, loaded up pretty good here. Right about there I think is going to work. I recently sanded here, so that could cause the glue to set pretty quick. So I got to get in here as quick as I can. Get it in place. All right. Move it where I need. Okay, make sure it's flush. The less sanding I have to do here, the better. All right, this is exactly where I needed it. And I feel like if I just sit here for a good 20 seconds or so, we should be really solid. Oh, that's great. Oh. It's so nice when things work out. I mean, so far, fingers crossed. And it's just, it's just a little bit. I didn't have to move it too much. So if I needed to sand things down, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. I've seen much worse fit issues than this on plenty of models. Okay, just hold for a few more seconds here. You grew up and it started at 6 months old. Oh my gosh. We make our own stuff. Oh, that's fantastic, Connor. That's so darn cool. Looking on Amazon now for sanding sticks. I don't have any. Yeah, that's Arnell. I recommend sanding sticks, man. I love them. Connor, we do half French native. I'm not sure what MROE stands for, native. Wow. I'm trying to think about what MROE, I'm not sure what that means. And there's his YouTube channel there. Yeah, youtube.com at Connor the Native Models. Terrific. Guys, check out his channel. Go ahead. And I got to tell you, if you get a second, subscribing to somebody's channel and liking their videos makes a huge impact. And it's so easy for us to do that as viewers that we take it for granted. But if you want to help anybody out, just hit subscribe. Even hit that bell, right? So you know when their videos are up. When their video drops, even if you can't watch it, just hit like. Just help them out. It takes a second, I will say when it comes to watching somebody's video that you're trying to support, whether it's Connor or myself or anybody else, the more you watch through it, the better it is for that channel's growth. And ultimately, when you start to get money through YouTube, it increases the amount of money that you make, okay? So again, it's almost to the point where if you just let's say you want to have YouTube up and you want to watch something on YouTube, but you also want to support a friend, you could put that friend's video up, just mute it, put it in the background, and let it run while you watch something else, And it seems a little bit like a cheating, I get it, but it really, just watching somebody's video all the way through, even letting the ads just kind of run, if they have ads, it helps out that channel a whole bunch, okay? So, yeah, if you can go to Connor's channel and just subscribe and just start hitting like on his stuff, it helps him out. That'd be really cool. And Connor, you just started that, I think, like 2 weeks ago. Is that right? That's amazing. And yeah, I really, recommend any modeler out there to just give it a shot. It really is, there's a learning curve on like the editing software and stuff, and but if anything, it's nice to just be able to look back at your builds and say, oh yeah, I did that, Anyway, all right, so I'm feeling pretty good. I'm hearing movement, but I think that's further in the model. I don't think that's actually at the points that I was concerned about. They seem to be maintaining their shape, so that's great. I am kind of back and forth in my mind about how I'm going to tackle this. What I want to do, how I'm going to tackle, just make sure the rest of it's secure. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use Tamiya Extra Thin on this portion here. Let it run all the way down. In fact, you can see a little bit of a gap here. I don't really want to. I don't want to go away. So I think what I'll do later on is if it's too noticeable for me, then I'll tackle it a little bit with some of the plastic putty. I'll run a bead along it, force it down with a toothpick, and then take a moistened Q-tip and run all the excess off, and it'll leave a slight seam there. I'm gonna do the same here. Put some pretty good drops. All right, and just push it along the edge there. That should be pretty even. That feels pretty good. All right, and then I'm going to do a little bit all along it, especially some of the places where you see a little bit of a gap. I kind of build it up just a little bit. I'm not trying to get rid of the gap. I'm not trying to get rid of the seam is what I mean to say. Okay, there's probably a lot of liquid sitting around, rolling around in there. So I'm gonna let it sit for a little bit. And I'm gonna come back to this I think at some point tomorrow and see how it looks. All right, I think with that, I'm gonna finish, this is gonna be it for tonight. Thank you so much for joining, guys. I really, really appreciate it. Let's just double check here on some of the chats. More native, it will make, actually try more. Yeah, absolutely. 2 weeks ago, okay, great, yeah. More native, interesting. Okay, so what you're saying native, you're referring to like American Indian, right? Is that what we're talking about? Native Americans, yeah? Interesting. Wow. That is so cool, Connor. Hey, Connor, if you get a second, feel free to email me. I would like to see some of the I'm not sure if you call them costumes or garb or what the outfits you guys wear. I'd like to see some of that and yeah, learn about it. I think that'd be really neat. So if you get a second, email me some of those. That'd be really great. All right, guys, this is going to be it. Thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate it. I'm going to check out that Squadron TV on Wednesday. Maybe I'll see. I don't know if there's a chat there, but if I'll chime in and maybe if you guys are there, give a wave. I'd appreciate that. Oh, because you are native. Okay. Thanks for sharing, Connor. That is wonderful. I have some Cherokee in my blood. Not a lot, but went to a Cherokee Nation event about a month ago. It was pretty amazing. So I understand. That's great. Yeah, share some of your stuff. That would be wonderful. I'd love to see that via email. And then I'm still working on the third of 4 F8 videos. I should get that out hopefully by the end of this week. Fingers crossed. I've been slow to make videos only because I'm in a mode where I'm in the flow essentially, where I'm just building and not spending enough time at the computer. So thanks for bearing with me. Yes, there's a chat. Thanks, Rynell. That's great to know. Good. I'll be there. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. I got to end the video now. Have a good one. Good night.